I wanted to take this opportunity to share a few highlights or lowlights from trade policy in the year 2025. These thoughts are purely my own. They're not a top 10 list or anything like that. Just a few things that popped into my head that I chose to write down and share with you. But first, a little bit of background music. For starters, President Trump broke his reciprocal tariffs promise. You may recall that Trump often talked about the need to have reciprocity and to match other countries' tariffs. So they have a 5% tariff, we have a 5% tariff. They have 0%, we have 0%. That's the definition of reciprocity. Instead, Trump decided to, for some reason, to abandon that and to base his tariffs on other factors entirely. So now we have non-reciprocal tariffs, the highest in the industrialized world, basically at the same level as Benin and Rwanda, for example. Instead of using reciprocal tariffs, President Trump and his advisors adopted the proposal from Democratic Congressman Richard Gephardt, who in 1987 introduced the Gephardt Amendment, which said we're going to base our tariffs on the level of our trade deficit with other countries. This is an idea that was routinely and roundly blasted by economists, by Republicans, Jack Kemp, for example, former congressman from New York, and President Reagan said if this ever made it into a bill that passed Congress, he would veto it. So this may be one of the most significant, if not the most significant trade action of the year. The embrace by the Republican Party of tax hikes, to have the Republicans impose $200 billion of taxes on Americans, and actually to do it without a vote of Congress, just seems shocking. And just to give you an idea of the magnitude of that tax increase, it's the equivalent to $1,500 per household in taxes. That's pretty strange coming from the Republican Party, both in terms of the tax increase itself and the idea that a president should be able to impose taxes without a vote of Congress. Here's Senator Rand Paul talking about this.
So I think it's worth the discussion, and it's worth people remembering that the Republicans used to be for lower taxes. Tariffs are a tax. So if you raise taxes on the private sector, that's not good for the private sector.
The White House panics over an ad featuring President Reagan discussing trade policy that was paid for by the government of Ontario. I'm just going to play a brief clip from that ad, and I think you can see why the White House panicked so much.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer.
Trump declares that imports of upholstered furniture threaten U.S. national security. Now you're going to say, you must be making that up. Well, trust me, I'm not creative enough, I'm not imaginative enough to come up with that. President Trump says that our investment surplus in the United States is a national emergency. Now, you have to bear with me on this. When we trade with another country, they use the dollars they earn from selling to us either to buy our exports or to invest in our economy. So if they use all those dollars to buy our exports, imports and exports balance, some people think that's a good thing. But if they use those dollars to buy, say, a share of Apple, or if they use those dollars to build a Toyota factory or a BMW factory in the United States, then we have what is considered an investment surplus, which is just the flip side of a trade deficit. So when President Trump says, oh, we're being destroyed by trade deficits, really that's the exact same thing as saying we're being destroyed by an investment surplus. It is not a logical way to look at trade policy. By the way, the biggest reduction in the trade deficit we've had in recent decades was during the Great Recession, when we became too poor, essentially, to afford as many imports, and the trade deficit went down. House Speaker Mike Johnson redefined the definition of calendar day in order to avert a vote on President Trump's tariffs. So the law specifically requires that a resolution can be introduced to terminate the national emergency. It's got to be brought to the House or Senate floor, respectively, within 15 days and voted on within 3 days. So the Speaker did not want the House to vote on the tariffs, probably because he knew that Republicans and Democrats would vote the tariffs down. Since the law requires such a vote within a set number of days, he redefines the meaning of days. By redefining a day to mean something other than 24 hours, he was able to get around this legal requirement. Coming up in the next few weeks, we're going to see a replay of this attempt, perhaps. Now, this one is not hugely significant, but it's one of my favorite moments of the year. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent repeatedly said that tariffs are not taxes. So, in a Senate Finance Committee hearing, Senator Catherine Cortez Masto asked Secretary Bessent, point blank, is a tariff a tax? And again, he said, as he always says, no, a tariff is not a tax. So the response from the senator, if you look very closely towards the end, I think for a microsecond you can see her brain glitch as it tries to process this outrageous statement. So again, tariff, by definition, is an import tax. Everybody knows it. Well, almost everybody knows it.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that tariffs are taxes?
Sorry?
Do you think tariffs are taxes?
No.
No, they're not.
No.
Okay. And
so farmers wanted relief from tariffs on inputs, things like fertilizer, for example, that were driving up the cost of producing goods in the United States. And they wanted an end to U.S. tariffs that were creating trade tensions and reducing our export opportunities in other countries. The administration, rather than agreeing to those requests, said, hey, here's some money. Here's $12 billion in farm welfare payments coming from President Trump and our agriculture secretary, who some people are now calling bailout Brooke Rollins because of her embrace of farm subsidies over reductions in these costly tariffs. Here's a short one. Trade deficit got bigger. The entire point of President Trump's misguided tariffs was to reduce the trade deficit. It didn't get smaller, it got bigger. Not that it matters. So this one, I think, is one of the more significant developments that we've seen. It is the Trump administration choosing to negotiate the stupidest trade deals in U.S. history. So in the past, our trade agreements did two things. They lowered U.S. taxes on imports, which made our economy more competitive, lowered costs for U.S. manufacturers and producers. But importantly, our trade agreements also reduced foreign barriers to U.S. exports, and they opened export opportunities for U.S. Exporters, whether manufacturer, farmer, what have you. Now, by increasing U.S. tariffs and keeping them very high, the Trump administration reduces U.S. export opportunities. Here's how economists explained it in a 1930 letter regarding the Smoot-Hawley tariff. It's not very complicated. Quote, countries cannot buy from us unless they are permitted to sell to us. In other words, the more we hike tariffs, the more we reduce export opportunities. That language was repeated in a warning from economists to the Trump administration in 2018. And here's what Nobel laureate economist Milton Friedman had to say about it.
If we import less steel, foreigners earn fewer dollars. They have fewer dollars to spend in this country. There are people around the country who will not have jobs, not have productive jobs, because exports do not develop. Here, I should not have to spell this out in great detail here in Kansas. This is a great agricultural state. Agriculture is one of our main, agricultural products are one of our main exports. The harmful effects of steel imports are to reduce jobs in agriculture.
So I want to acknowledge a good thing that happened, a positive thing that happened, and you may have noted the Trump administration consistently talking about the fact that gas prices have come down at the pump, and many Republican members of Congress have echoed this. Of course, one of the wise things that President Trump did when he announced his tariffs was exempt motor fuel and petroleum from those tariffs. Exempted those imports from tariffs, prices went down. Maybe there's a lesson there, just saying. So as we prepare to celebrate our 250th birthday for the United States, let's keep in mind that our country's founders rejected the idea that a ruler should be able to cut off our trade with all the countries of the world. And let's move towards a system that respects our freedom and respects that founding principle.